Golf Podcast, presented by Golficity, where we bring you the tips, instruction, and support you need to get the most out of your golf game. And now your hosts, Frank and Mike.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Golf Podcast. This is episode number 193, and we've got an interview coming up for you with Steve Wharton, who is author of the book Golf in the High Zone. We're going to talk about high vibrational thinking and how to get in the zone. We've all heard about when you feel it, when you're in the zone. Well, we're going to talk about how to get there and how to stay there and how that's going to affect your golf game. So I'm really looking forward to bringing Steve on the show. Before we do that, Mike, I want to thank this week's sponsor, realvision.com. Basically, look, realvision.com, what they do is they get the smartest investors in the world and they film them talking about their market insights and trade ideas. It's no wonder people have described realvision.com as TED Talks for finance. It's long form, in depth, no holds barred content, all great stuff that you can put into action right away. So go to realvision.com/golf. Like I said, think of it as TED Talks for finance. That's realvision, realvision.com/golf. You're not going to want to miss this. So go check that out. Mike, let's just talk real quick. One of the most depressing things, it is getting so cold here in the Northeast. I'm super jealous of everyone in the Golf Podcast Facebook group from down south sharing like beautiful pictures. Yeah, Florida, awesome California, Texas, where it's still nice and warm. But here's one thing that it's just like that. You feel like that nail going in the coffin for the golf season. We got flurries here today.
Yeah, how bad is that?
I walked out of the office and I'm like, that can't be. Is that, it wasn't sticking yet, but you just know it's coming.
It's coming, but I did check the weather report. It's supposed to heat up a little bit after the weekend, back into the 50s. If anything, I'm going to try to make it a point to put in some really solid range sessions. And even if I could just get like 20 minutes after work or like leave the office a little early, but while there's daylight, and just go hit a bucket of balls. I'm going to try to do that because I hope we get back into the simulator, but let's face it. I mean, the simulator, time consuming and it's expensive, right? I mean, I don't know about, spending a couple hours on a Saturday. That's kind of rough.
Yeah. But I tell you, I'll do the same thing. I'll play as long as I physically can, as far as the weather goes. Yeah. But, it is tough playing when it's really chilly out there. Between trying to swing with, I don't know. When we played West Point, I was wearing, I think, 4 layers. I got 2 sweatshirts on and then a jacket. And then, the ball, it just feels like you're hitting a rock. My father was joking. I just saw him earlier for dinner and I was talking to him about his round because they're playing still every weekend and they're teeing off that first tee time when it's just starting, the sun's coming up.
Jeez.
So it's super cold.
It's cold.
He's like, here's the perfect example. He shot a 47 on the front and a 37 on the back.
Yeah, he warmed up.
Yeah, he warmed up. The sun came up. Everything warmed up. It is so hard to play under those conditions. It feels like you're hitting a rock when you make contact with the ball. You know that feeling?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not fun. It really isn't fun. I mean, towards, I think like the 12th or 13th hole at West Point, at that point, I was just like, all right, come on. I'm freezing. I was underdressed.
Yeah.
Plus the rain came, it's not fun. And it's depressing because we're going to go into like that 4 to 5 month, hangover.
I know. It's like when everybody's got the clubs ready to go for when you have that 1 or 2 days when it's like that warm streak, and you got a couple days and everybody runs out to the golf course to play. Of course. But
how many rounds has your father put in this year? I wanted to ask you that. What do you think?
Geez, I would say.
Did he get in over 100?
He might have. The season, don't forget, here is unfortunately, sadly short. So we're talking about reality of probably it started to warm up around March, right? He's always out there. So he's played roughly 4 times a week every week since March. So you do the math on that because he's got his standard every Saturday, Sunday round, and then he's been getting out there two afternoons a week. So God bless him.
Interesting.
Keep getting out there and playing. But speaking of that, of West Point, if anybody didn't get a chance to catch it yet, we've dropped that vlog episode last weekend. And that one was great. A lot of fun. I mean, we had a lot of fun with it. For as tough as the conditions were, I mean, we all shot atrociously, but But for as tough as the conditions were, it was a lot of fun. Get out there, play West Point. I was a little bit disappointed because I remember back when I last played it many years ago, before they kind of like moved everything around and you tee off on the 5th hole and now whatever they've got going. But the course is still in beautiful shape. Some of the pictures we shared, you could take a look at that. Our little A-team intro.
Yeah, that was fun. If you haven't
seen that yet, you got to check that out. That was funny because, it just reminded me. I'm like, Mike, we're playing, West Point. It's like, let's be the A-team.
I mean, that was a tough little track. I'm thinking about that par 3 that we were going to make that closest to the pin bed on. And with a little swamp in the back or whatever. And you think about that shot, and then the hole right after it was the one where everyone went out right, and there was there was water in the middle, and then it goes uphill. I mean, the course is tricky. I mean, there was a lot of par 3s on it, but still, the course was very hard. The terrain was kind of, very uneven. And then when you got to remember those last couple of par 5s we played when we went back over the bridge? Yeah, they were awkward. Remember, it had to go up like a slanted slope hill.
Yes, I mean, we couldn't get up with the carts because it was so wet.
Exactly. So, I mean, a lot of us had the ball above our feet there. I mean, it's not an easy course. So even on a beautiful, crisp summer day, that course is still very difficult.
A funny little fun fact. I say that because you had your fun fact in the vlog episode.
Yes.
But an interesting fact that I read is that many, many years ago, when golf was just first starting, they said par used to change by the conditions of the day.
Interesting.
So if it was really cold and windy, they would change what was considered par. It just shows you because it really does make a difference. But
could you imagine?
I can't imagine. And I don't know the specifics of it. I just know that I heard that somewhere along the way, and that could have been a long time ago. But yeah, I tell you, it was a challenging track, but the conditions were by far the most challenging. At one point, I had my head so tied up in knots of just trying to figure out distances, because it was so cold that nothing was traveling. But, and then there's so many elevation changes on that course. I don't feel like that was ever where we were hitting straight at a hole. All the par 5s are either dramatically uphill or dramatically downhill. So take, for instance, that hole where we played closest to the pin. I was just, at that point, everything was coming up short for the first couple holes. So I was starting to club up on every distance, figuring the cold, but it was downhill and I just couldn't figure it out. I played one club more than I normally would, and I flew right over the whole green.
Right.
And then there was the other hole where that was that par 5, the longer one. Par 3, the longer one uphill, where I remember looking at it and saying, this all day long, this distance is between a 6 and a 7 iron for me. And I hit the 5 iron and
you were short,
just came up on the fringe short. I figured, well, there's not a lot of trouble behind it. I'll hit the 5 iron and go a little bit over, if anything. And it looked so good the whole way. And then it just lands short. It was just, by that time, I just was so baffled as to what to hit. It was starting to throw me off.
It was tough. I mean, and aren't those type of conditions where having the right ball can make a difference? I mean, do you think if you played a heavier ball that day, it would have worked out better?
Well, no doubt you would want to play a lower compression ball, because the colder it is, the harder it's going to be to compress that ball anyway. So I'm all for playing a softer ball in those cold conditions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because that's why I say, like, that feeling like you're hitting a rock. The harder that ball is, to me, it just feels like more of a stinger making contact with it. I like to play a softer golf ball when it's cold. Yeah,
interesting. Okay.
In general, I like playing a softer one anyway. I play the Callaway, the Chrome Softs usually, but I experiment with different things. And the funny little thing is that the reality is some of these rounds in the fall, I started to just switch my bag out to my junk balls, because you end up losing so many to those leaves. You have to step on them to find them. I end up not wanting to lose, a sleeve of my Callaways. I just play like some of the junk ones that I've found throughout the season.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, speaking of that, real quick, I just wanted to mention this to you. I think this is the first season I did not play your home course.
We didn't play it at all this year? No, you're right. We didn't.
We didn't play it at all. Well, we all had babies and everything, so I mean, a lot of things happened this year.
Come on, what's with all these babies?
What's with all these babies everyone's having? But yeah, it went right from mine in April to yours in June. So that was right in the heart of the golf season. But I just thought about that. I did not tackle West Hills at all this year. But it's all right. We'll come out strong next year.
Come out strong next year
Yeah,
for sure.
for sure.
We'll play it. We got to play the par 3 course there too. That's fun for practicing your short game.
Yeah.
But all right, so let's just really quickly talk about what we got going on today. We're going to be talking, like I said, with Steve Wharton. He's the author of Golf in the High Zone. I've got a copy of the book here. I've been working my way through it. Really interesting stuff. I love everything with the mental game. Steve, he works on this high vibrational mind therapy, and we're going to get into more of what that means, but he's just talking about simply adjusting your mindset and how much that can change your golf game. And pretty much anyone who's experienced this knows that to be a reality. You know when you're in the zone and you're feeling confident and when you're not. I mentioned this in the last episode. I talked briefly about the difference being like when I'm really confident, really in the zone, I feel like the club is like an extension of myself. And when I don't, like I said, I feel like a monkey who's been handed a hammer. Like I don't know what to do with it. But that's what I want to get into because Steve's got some great stuff in here. He's a fan of the show. He reached out to us. It's actually really great because he is burning the midnight oil to get onto the show tonight because he's over across the pond in England. So it's going to be about 2:30 in the morning his time when we record here. But he's a fan of the show. He wanted to get on, and I want to hear his story because one thing that he talks about, and I've been going back and forth emailing him for the last couple of weeks, and he himself, he's like us. He's learning the game. He's kind of a hacker in some ways. He's about ranges between an 18 and a 24 handicap. He doesn't play that often. He more so, focuses on mental training and things like that. But he said when he first was diving into this, he tested it out. And on the front 9, he played around on the front 9. He shot his usual about 54. I think he said he shot a 54. And then he switched to using this technique. And he said the first time ever he recorded level par 36 on the back 9. So that's dramatic. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen to everybody, but it is proof that there's something there. There's something in this. And if so, right, I want to dive into it and I want to explore it for sure. So this is really cool. Can't wait to get him on the show. So let's do this. Let's do a quick word from our sponsor and then we're going to bring him in. That way we won't be keeping him up too late.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Let's do that now. And let's go ahead and bring Steve right on the show. All right, guys, once again, I want to talk about realvision.com. You heard me mention them at the top of the show, but you might be asking yourself, what is realvision.com? Well, the best way to describe it, and this is how one of their subscribers summed it up. He said, watching Real Vision is the closest thing you can get to stalking the legends of finance. Here's what they do. Realvision.com, they fly all over the world. They track down the big guns of finance and they get them to share their thinking about markets, investment strategies, trade ideas, all that real gold that we're looking for. And here's, when I say legends of finance, I mean it. Some of these names, are type of people you would love to get a minute just to pick their brain. Guys like Kyle Bass, Jim Grant, John Burkbank, Russell Clark, Mark Yesko. The names go on and on and on. If you check out their website, you'll see exactly what I mean. It just keeps going. And like I said, the content, it's pure gold. So if you want to know what the cleverest people in finance are thinking right now, go to realvision.com/golf. It's like stalking the legends of finance. That's realvision, RealVision.com/golf. Check them out. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, we have Steve Wharton on the show, author of Golf in the High Zone. Steve, welcome to the Golf Podcast.
Thank you.
So before we jump into your book a little bit, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how that relates to golf?
Yeah, well, I've spent the last 45 years studying psychology and self-development. In that time period, I've actually written 18 different books. I've had 7 books published by publishing companies. I've self-published 11. The books I've written were mainly about things such as bullying, depression, self-harm in relationships, that kind of thing. I did some work in the UK for our social services, public courses together for them, on bullying and schools as well. Now the golf thing, obviously golf's something I've always enjoyed playing myself, not a lot, but socially, quite often. And I always knew that I could do something with this work in respect of golf. A friend of mine is a professional golfer, and I was chatting to him one day about 7 years ago, and we discussed the idea then of putting the book together. And that was when I decided to do it. And it's been going on for about 7 years. It's only really recently that I've put the finishing touches to the book. And he's sort of looked at it as we've gone along and tested out the ideas to see if he feels that it works. And he was really pleased with it, really excited about the idea of the book coming out. And this is Simon Robinson who wrote the foreword to the book. You'll see it in the book there.
Yep.
So that's kind of how it came about. I have a website as well, which is about high vibrational thinking. This is what it's all about. This is the concept that I've been working with for over 30 years, and this is what's behind all of my writing and understanding of bullying and depression and sport, that kind of thing.
And that's exactly what I wanted to dive into, because I know that's where the book starts. Can you tell us a little bit about what is high vibrational thinking, and how does that apply to golf, and how can we access that?
Yeah, high vibrational thinking is something that I learned about over 30 years ago. And at first, it was something that I started to look at life through high vibrational thinking eyes, if you like. I started to realize how powerful this concept was. And what it is, it's very similar to positive thinking, but you take things right down to the energy level, and you look at things in terms of energy. And what I discovered was everything was made of energy, which we all seem to know now. And energy, if you, every day of your life you get up and you go out into your day, and you will experience different energies coming towards you. As it's like a roller coaster ride every day. Negative energy might make you feel a little bit down, a little bit negative. Positive energy might make you feel high, a little bit up. This is how it sort of works. Now, this in respect of golf, it's so revealing when you put this on the idea of golf and look at how people can play so well when they are in the zone. This is the key: getting in the zone and being able to play how they can play when that happens. So what is it that's going on there? Well, high vibrational thinking tells us what happens when that person plays exceptionally well. They're in the high vibration. I don't know does that make sense? If you read the book, you'll see it's quite clear and quite easy to understand. But the higher the person is vibrating, the easier it is to play sport. But normally, we're not normally there, because our normal default setting is somewhere below that. Mm-hmm. That makes sense? Yeah.
That does make sense. So that would, as far as, how that would be applied. So that could possibly be the explanation of why we see so much variation in performance of people at the same skill level. I would imagine, like, for instance, a lot of golfers, it almost is confounding to them how, their skill level hasn't changed in any way from one round to the next, but that their score can be so wildly different. That's what we talk about, this inconsistency with the game. Really the only thing that's changed is it's one day to the next day. So you're saying that it's possible that this could be what that key is to what's affecting and what's going on there.
Absolutely. Yeah. What happens is you may go to the golf course and you may have other things on your mind that's going on in your life that day, other things that you're thinking about. You don't particularly realize it, but when you start playing golf, and your vibration is slightly affected by what's happening elsewhere, and that has pulled you down a fraction, and that affects the way that your golf goes that day. If you can learn to get your vibration as high as possible every time that you go to play golf, you'll find that it comes easier to you. You start to play better, and you hit peak form more often. And occasionally you might have a day that we call playing in the zone, where everything seems to go unbelievably well for you.
Yeah.
This is a really positive day when your vibration is very high and circumstances have come together and somehow placed you there. Normally it's a fluke thing. We don't really, up until this point, people haven't really understood it, so they couldn't really push themselves into that vibration. And this is when everything goes really well for you. So now we understand it through high vibrational thinking. It's quite easy to see how to get there and how to keep yourself there. This is the key. This is what this book, I believe, brings. It answers 3 questions that I really have baffled psychologists for a long time. What is the zone? How do you get there? And why can you play so well when you are there?
Right. Yeah, and especially for us as amateur golfers, it can be especially challenging because you're very often when you get to go to the golf course, it's between everything else that's happening in your busy day. So I would imagine you're carrying a lot of that with you when you get out there. So how exactly do we start to become aware of it and actually change our vibrational thinking rather than just kind of being subject to it? Like, oh, I happen to have a great round today. I'm feeling great. I'm really feeling it. Or I had a poor round. It seems like when you do have that poor round of golf, it's almost like a snowball rolling downhill. You're just getting more and more frustrated. So how is it that you kind of switch that back and start to actually control this?
Well, the first thing is understanding what's happening. That's when you understand golf through high vibrational thinking, and you read the book, the first couple of chapters. It sort of explains how it works. And once you have the understanding, well, then you're always aware. There'll never be a day when you go to the golf course again where you're not aware of how energy works. That itself is empowering because you do think more about keeping yourself in the right mindset. Then, of course, you can do lots of other things to enhance that mindset and leave behind the negativity so you get in as high vibration as possible. And, of course, that will help you play better, more consistent golf.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How have you seen this beyond even the amateur game? How have you seen this played out in something that we can use as an example, maybe on the PGA Tour? Is there anybody who stands out to you from an outsider looking in that is exceptionally good at this, whether it be now in the present or even in the past? Was there any player who you feel like could really tap into high vibrational thinking?
Yeah, I think my favorite player was always Seve Ballesteros.
Mm-hmm.
And he was an emotional player who played with his heart in his sleeve. And Seve, I believe, played a lot of his golf in the high vibrations. And the reason I think he did that was because he had such enthusiasm and such an excitable approach to the game. He loved and he was so passionate about golf. Every time he played and every shot he played, he was in the right mindset because of his sheer excitement and enthusiasm. Of course, we all saw Seve becoming angry and frustrated as well, which will have lost him his vibration. But then by the time he got to the next shot, he could be back up again because he was wanting again to see what magic he could conjure up with his golf. And I think Seve was a player that often was in the high vibrations when he played. This is why he played so well. I think as well, Tiger Woods possibly as well spent a lot of his time playing in a high vibrational mindset, which may have been due to his upbringing. The book talks a lot about upbringing because that's when we get set in our vibrational zone, if you like, especially the first 6 years of our lives. This is the 6 years when we are subject to whatever energy is around in the family home. And we tend to soak up this energy if we live in an environment where there's lots of negativity, such as arguing, frustration, these kind of feelings. We take them on board, and these things we carry through our lives. This is why they say, give me the child till he's 7, and I'll give you the man, because we get pretty much our character formed in the first 6 or 7 years. So I think if you have a good first 6 or 7 years where you're in a very positive environment, it can really help later on when you do it, well, whatever you're doing, like this golf. But it can certainly help in golf.
That's a strong point too, because especially from a mindset standpoint, I would imagine that this could translate to a lot of areas in your life, career wise or whatever it may be. So yeah, it's very interesting. It's a very interesting concept. I really love what you did with the book. I just got my copy, which I appreciate you sending over, just a couple of days ago. So I've worked my way about halfway through it, but I can see how this could be twofold. Just like how you had talked about, how quickly you saw an improvement from this, shooting, a 54 on the front and a 36 on the back by starting to implement this. But I would also imagine you could see some quick results, but it also sounds like it could be a long journey of being able to really, kind of get this where you're able to stay in that high vibrational thinking. Is that something that takes time and just kind of working and staying aware of it to get there?
Yeah, I think you're going to instantly get some kind of results. and you will have days where it works out really well. But of course, like anything else, you've got to practice it. You've got to put the time in and teach yourself to be in the right mindset. Right. This is part of it. I think once you've combined the two with your golf practice and your mind practice, you actually put them together. It'll soon come on pretty quickly.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's very intriguing stuff. All right, so Steve, I don't want to keep you too long. Can you tell us a little bit more about how our listeners can get their hands on your book?
Yeah, the book's available on Amazon at the moment. It's available paperback and Kindle form. That's really the only way they can get it at present.
Well, that's great. I mean, especially with Kindle. I mean, if you need something on demand, you'll get it right that minute. So I'll link to that as well in the show notes so that our listeners can check it out. Because, like I said, I'm working my way through the book, and it is enlightening. That's for sure. And I can just see how this is not just that golf game improvement. This is all areas of your life that can really benefit from that high vibrational thinking. We talked about positive thinking before, but this to me just kind of takes it to that next level. So, really interesting stuff. We appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us. Is there, anything else that you wanted to add before we wrapped it up?
Yeah, I've done a little bit of promotion work with the book. I've sent a few copies out to people. And it's been a fantastic response so far. I'm quite surprised how well it's been taken on board. I can't really say any names, but there's quite a few professional golfers have been in touch with me about the book. They've only just received it, and some of them have started reading it, and they've been back in touch and said that it really is something that they think that it can help them. So I think it's going down well.
That's truly excellent. And that's another point too, is that this is pretty much for any skill level, from beginner, I would imagine, all the way up to professional. But even for beginners who are just starting to learn the game, it's like learning your grip the right way. So right off the bat, you would say advising learning these concepts and this mindset off the bat is something. It's in other words, it's not too early to start. At any level, you could start with this.
Yeah, I think that golf has been very much practice and not enough mindset. Mind part of it has been used up until this point. It's been behind a little bit. All the work's gone into the clubs and the swing and the practice, but not so much into the mind part of the game. And it needs to be brought forward and brought up to scratch with the rest. Mm-hmm. Now, I've talked to a few professional golfers as well who, when I first talked to them about this, we're sort of saying, well, we've seen it all, we've done this, we've done that, but then they had a look at the work, and they were quite surprised at the work. I think it really opened their eyes a little bit, and they said, yes, we get it now. Now we understand it. It's like a light goes on, if you like. It's a little bit more understanding comes because of the way that it's explained. So it did certainly help them.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's one thing I always love about the mental game. It's not like the swing, which feels like sometimes it can come and go. Once you've kind of learned a concept, you've got that you can carry with you from there forward and just kind of build on it and learn with it. So really great stuff. Again, I want to thank you for taking your time to speak with us today on the show, and really enjoying your book. Like I said, I'll link to that in the show notes so everybody can get a chance to check it out. Wish you all the best with it. And you're welcome back. Come back on the show anytime, because this is one of my favorite concepts to talk about.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you very much for having me on the show. And I hope you enjoyed the book, and more will come of it, I'm sure.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Just quickly wrapping it up here. I apologize for the poor sound quality. We're trying to clean that up as much as we can as we do the edits after the fact. But like I said, it's tough sometimes when we're recording across the pond, so to speak, over Skype connection. It's not always the best connection, but the stuff that we're talking about there, the concepts, it is so good. It's so solid. I've always been a big fan of this. This is why I kind of piqued my interest when Steve first reached out to me about the book. I've always been a kind of a fan of this idea of higher vibration. He calls it higher vibrational thinking, HVT. I've always thought of it as kind of positive thinking. I don't think it's a farce. I think in a lot of ways that it may sound a little bit new agey when I say positive thinking, but it's really always worked for me. And when I look back on my better rounds, my worst rounds, that seems to be the correlation. The correlation is when I'm feeling good, I'm feeling positive, I'm also feeling confident. I talked about this before, sometimes in the body language, you can just see it, like in a golfer who's playing well and you can kind of just see in their body language versus someone who's not, and they're just kind of slumped over and dragging the club, and you could just tell they don't want to be there. But before, it seemed like we're so not in control of it. It seems like it's controlling us, and it seems like a random crapshoot, so to speak, of what you're going to get that day. How am I going to play this day? I don't even know. Like, I played great today, I played poor, whatever it may be. What I liked about this and what sparked my interest is it's where you can start to take control of that and how you're going to play that day by, as Steve was saying, first bringing your awareness to it. So you can get a baseline of where I'm at right now, and then shifting that and being able to shift it by first being aware of it. So being able to elevate your thinking, so to speak. So, I don't want to get into too much of the specifics of it because it's all there in the book. Like I said, really great book. Very inexpensive. I looked at it on I think on Kindle. If you have like Prime or something, it was like free if you have like the Kindle subscription or whatever it is. Otherwise, it was like not somewhere between $9 and $12 depending on what country you're purchasing it in.
Right.
Really, really quick read. Really great little book. So I think if anybody out there is interested in the mental game, pick this one up, check it out. You will enjoy it. And I'll link to that in the show notes, which you can get to by going to golficity.com/episode 193. All right. That's everything we have this week. We'll be back next week with more instruction for you. In the meantime, check it out in the Facebook group. Just go to Facebook, search the Golf Podcast. You'll see we've got a great little group going. It's a free open group for all listeners of the show. Some great conversations that we're able to carry on throughout the week there. So in between episodes, make sure you check that out. All right. We'll see everybody again next week.